Have you ever felt like no matter how kind and accommodating you are, one specific person always takes advantage of your patience? Instead of responding with appreciation, they grow bolder, more dismissive, and more demanding. It's almost as if your kindness is feeding their sense of entitlement. That strange and unsettling dynamic can often signal you're dealing with a narcissist, someone who doesn't see your niceness as a virtue, but rather as an invitation to push your limits. Today, we're diving into a concept that may feel counterintuitive: why being nice to a narcissist doesn't just fail, it backfires, and what you should do instead. This isn't about becoming cruel or vindictive, but about learning to protect your boundaries, your emotional energy, and your self-worth in a relationship that plays by different rules. So if you've been exhausted by trying to keep the peace, overlooking insults, giving endless chances, offering heartfelt explanations, only to be walked on even more, keep watching. There is a better way. Imagine Serena, a genuinely compassionate friend who believed that if she just stayed patient and polite, she could calm down her narcissistic partner's erratic outbursts. She'd smile, nod, apologize for things that weren't her fault, and surrender her own comfort just to avoid conflict. But the more she tried to be nice, the more manipulative her partner became, demanding more, criticizing more, and showing zero gratitude. In fact, it felt like her niceness was fueling his sense of power over her. If you've ever had that pit in your stomach, the feeling that your kindness is being exploited, drop a simple "I've felt it" in the comments. You're not alone in that confusion. In this video, we'll unravel exactly why the usual empathy-first approach fails with a narcissist, how to recognize the moment you're being taken advantage of, and what strategic shift can preserve your sanity while dismantling the narcissist's control. By the end, you'll see that ceasing to be overly nice isn't about losing your good nature, it's about drawing a protective line that a narcissist won't cross without consequence. Why does being consistently nice, tolerant, and forgiving backfire so intensely when dealing with a narcissist? After all, in most healthy interactions, kindness fosters goodwill. We expect reciprocal politeness, improved understanding, or at least an appreciation for our efforts. But with a narcissist, those assumptions flip upside down. A narcissist's worldview revolves around control and self-validation. They interpret your attempts at kindness, like offering them multiple chances or politely ignoring their slights, not as moral high ground, but as a sign you won't stand up for yourself. Essentially, each time you silently endure disrespect or quickly forgive them, you reinforce the notion that you're safe to manipulate. They think, if they're this tolerant of my jabs, I can get away with even more. They see your empathy as an exploitable resource, not something to respect. Consider rumored stories about certain celebrities stuck in toxic marriages or partnerships. A star might keep the public facade of graciousness, hoping their partner's attitude will soften. Yet behind closed doors, sources claim the partner only intensifies their controlling or humiliating tactics, feeding off that unwavering courtesy. The star tries harder to be nice, and ironically, the partner escalates. It's the same dynamic in everyday life, just with fewer paparazzi. If that resonates with you, where your gentle approach led to worse treatment, drop "too real" in the comments. Recognizing this pattern is the first step to dismantling it. Because in the narcissist's mind, your niceness is not bridging divides, it's fueling their sense of power. Let's explore Serena in more depth. She's a genuinely caring person who always tries to see the best in others. After starting a relationship with Mark, a classic narcissist, she attributed his moody outbursts, silent treatments, and put-downs to stress. Instead of challenging him, she'd respond with calm, soothing words: "It's okay, I understand," or "Don't worry, I'm here for you." She'd even apologize for perceived slights just to keep him content. She believed wholeheartedly that kindness would mellow Mark's aggression over time. But Mark's behavior grew more brazen. He started criticizing her friends, mocking her personal interests, and trivializing her accomplishments. Each time Serena tried to placate him with extra kindness, he sneered at her for being too soft or clueless. She'd attempt to be even more agreeable, hoping he'd see her good intentions. Instead, he took her emotional generosity as a green light to push further. Her repeated attempts to reassure or console him only fed his dominance. She felt her sense of self eroding, but was stuck in the loop of, maybe I just need to be more understanding. One night, after Mark publicly ridiculed her in front of their mutual acquaintances, Serena finally confided in a trusted friend who saw the signs. That friend bluntly told her, your kindness is giving him permission to walk over you. If you've observed a loved one, or yourself, fall into this cycle, type, seen it. Because like Serena, many realize too late that, being nicer, doesn't fix a narcissist's abusive tendencies, it often amplifies them. A crucial question arises, why do narcissists interpret niceness as weakness? The root lies in their fundamental lack of empathy and their insatiable hunger for control. Let's break it down. Entitlement and power. A narcissist sees the world as hierarchical, someone's always on top. They want that top position, psychologically speaking. Your kindness, from their lens, confirms they hold leverage. If you're always yielding ground, they assume they can push further. They interpret your politeness as you conceding their superior position. Emotional fuel, supply. Narcissists thrive on emotional reactions, whether it's adoration, fear, or guilt. When you're nice, they can manipulate you into doing more for them, feeding their ego. They'll often push boundaries, expecting you to hold on to that positivity, never pushing back effectively. This sense of unlimited forgiveness or courtesy can deepen their manipulative confidence. No genuine reciprocity. Unlike a healthy person who might reciprocate your empathy, a narcissist sees relationships as a one-way street. They don't think, you're kind, so I should be respectful. Instead, they think, you're an easy mark. I can keep taking without consequence. They might occasionally feign gratitude or softness to keep you hopeful, but it's calculated, not reciprocal. Invalidation and gaslighting. Narcissists often refuse to engage in good faith. If you highlight a hurtful action, they might deflect or accuse you of being too sensitive. Your attempt at kindly clarifying only further entangles you in their manipulations. They rewrite the narrative to cast you as over-emotional, reinforcing the idea that your niceness means you won't defend yourself. This is why, Stop Being Nice is less about cruelty and more about disrupting the narcissist's twisted interpretation of kindness. If you keep showing unconditional politeness, they read it as submission, and the cycle intensifies. Recognizing their viewpoint is critical. You can't persuade them with empathy if they're not wired to respond empathetically. You have to change the game. If any of this feels uncomfortably recognizable, drop "change the game" in the comments. It's the mental shift from assuming you're nice will fix them to understanding a narcissist sees niceness as surrender. When we say, stop being nice, it may sound harsh. But consider this, continuing a too nice approach effectively enables the narcissist to keep violating your boundaries. Niceness, in a normal context, means courtesy, empathy, patience. These are beautiful traits. However, in a dynamic with a narcissist, such traits are exploited. Perpetual pleasing. If you're constantly appeasing a narcissist's demands or excusing their abuse, you're reinforcing their behavior. They have no impetus to adjust or respect your viewpoint. They see your infinite patience as acceptance of their wrongdoing. Emotional exhaustion. You risk running yourself into a psychological burnout by trying to remain super nice while absorbing their insults. Narcissists can read your attempts to suit them as a sign they can keep ratcheting up their cruelty, because you'll always endure it. Lost authenticity. Over time, being nice can morph into people-pleasing that betrays your own desires, feelings, or moral lines. You might say yes to tasks that drain you, apologize for things you didn't do, or act cheerful to cover up internal pain. The narcissist gleans that you're not going to present serious resistance, so they escalate control. False hope. Clinging to the idea that your unwavering kindness will spark empathy in them fosters illusions. Narcissists rarely have genuine empathy or a moral compass that can be activated by your virtuous patience. Each nice reaction is seen as an opportunity to strengthen their hold. Thus, stop being nice is a clarion call to stop playing by rules the narcissist doesn't share. No more endless second chances. No more heartfelt monologues aimed at touching their conscience. Instead, you adopt a stance of clear boundaries and self-protection. If that resonates, if you see how forcibly being nice kept you stuck, post "no more illusions" in the comments. It's a statement that your kindness shouldn't be a pass for continued abuse. What does it look like to stop being nice and shift into a more boundary-centered approach? The transformation might feel jarring at first because it means short, decisive responses. When a narcissist corners you with demands or disrespect, you skip the elaborations. Instead of apologizing or sugarcoating, you respond with neutral finality: "No, that won't work," or "I'm not discussing this." This brevity deprives them of emotional engagement they'd use to twist your words. Unemotional delivery. The power lies not just in the words, but in how you say them. The narcissist hunts for frustration, guilt, or confusion in your tone. Offer none. Keep your voice steady, your posture calm, and your face composed. Imagine it as a business transaction, not an intimate conversation. Immediate follow-through. Boundaries are worthless if the narcissist sees they can ignore them without consequence. If they persist in crossing lines, you end the interaction or remove yourself. If they insult you in front of others, you quietly step away or say, "This conversation is over," then physically leave. Actions speak louder than nice words. Zero long-winded explanations. Narcissists thrive on debate. The second you try to explain politely or find common ground, they pivot the argument or gaslight you. Breaking from niceness means you accept you can't reason them into being fair. You save your mental energy by refusing to be drawn into unwinnable debates. For instance, if Serena's partner Mark demanded she skip her best friend's birthday to cater to him, previously she might have pleaded, "I'm sorry, but please understand." Now, she'd respond with, "I'm attending. Let's not discuss further." If Mark throws a tantrum, she remains unflustered, possibly leaving the room. That is the new posture, quiet firmness. If you see how these steps contrast drastically with being nice, type firm boundaries below. Because dropping niceness for a more resolute stance can feel like a radical but necessary shift. We often catch glimpses of this dynamic in rumored celebrity relationships. Let's consider the example of an internationally famous pop star, once known for her demure, sweet public persona. Reportedly, she endured a manipulative partner who belittled her behind the scenes, critiquing her creative choices, micromanaging her schedule, and humiliating her in private. For a while, she tried to keep everything calm, always apologizing or making excuses for his controlling behavior, thinking her niceness would defuse his aggression. But insiders say the turning point came when she adopted a different approach. She stopped offering him endless niceties, started responding with short lines like, "That's not your decision," and walked away if he tried to argue. She didn't scream or threaten, she just withheld the emotional caretaker role he was used to exploiting. Rumor has it he grew restless, realized she wasn't going to be the passive enabler any longer, and eventually the relationship collapsed. Though heartbreak ensued, she later described feeling unbelievably free once she put her foot down. This rumored story highlights the universal pattern: as soon as the narcissist sees their supply, in this case, your nice compliance, drying up, they scramble. They might escalate or attempt guilt. But if you hold firm, they lose interest or find a new victim. So ironically, dropping a forced smile and adopting matter-of-fact boundaries can be the healthiest, and yes, kindest to yourself, approach. If this resonates with you, seeing how a star's willingness to stop being nice reclaimed her autonomy, comment self-kindness first. Because genuine kindness starts with safeguarding your own well-being. To solidify this shift from niceness to boundary setting, let's dissect the anatomy of a boundary. Identification of a limit. You notice something the narcissist does: constant put-downs, manipulative requests, gossiping about you in front of others, that you decide is unacceptable. For example, insulting my friends is not something I'll tolerate. Clear communication. You express that limit succinctly: don't insult my friends again. Or, I won't stay in conversations where you mock me. You might say it calmly once, with no fancy justifications. Enforcement. This is where many people fail. If the narcissist crosses that line again, you demonstrate consequences: leaving the room, ending the phone call, refusing to assist them. No more arguments or niceties. You act on your boundary rather than waiting for them to respect it voluntarily. Consistent application. Narcissists test boundaries repeatedly. If they succeed in wearing you down once, they'll keep trying. So each time they violate your stated limit, you respond identically. That might mean, "I said no. I'm done," or "we're not discussing that," followed by immediate follow-through. Over time, they see your boundary isn't just talk. Crucial: boundaries are not about controlling the narcissist's behavior. You can't force them to be kind or rational. Boundaries instead define how you'll respond to their misbehavior. You're controlling your own domain, your actions, emotions, and presence. This means you don't rely on hoping they'll learn. You rely on consistent personal action that denies them the reward they seek: your emotional compliance. For Serena, she listed her top triggers: mocking her achievements, controlling her schedule, humiliating her in front of friends. She calmly told Mark those behaviors were lines. Next time Mark tried publicly ridiculing her, she cut him short with a short, neutral phrase: "Stop. That's not acceptable," then excused herself. She repeated this tactic each time. Over weeks, Mark realized she was no longer a pushover. If you're ready to pick a line or two you won't let them cross, comment: "My line, my rules." That phrase can symbolize your step away from blind niceness into real self-protection. Let's revisit Serena. Implementing boundaries wasn't instantaneous or easy. At first, she felt guilty, wondering if she was being mean by not smoothing things over or apologizing when Mark became agitated. She'd grown accustomed to being the emotional caretaker, that nice one. But after reflecting on how her niceness was enabling Mark's manipulations, she committed to change. Phase 1, she practiced short, calm phrases in a mirror: "That's not okay, I disagree, I'm leaving now." She worked on maintaining steady eye contact, or if it felt too confrontational, at least not looking down in submission. She reminded herself Mark's anger or blame wasn't her responsibility to fix. Phase 2, she tested her boundaries in minor scenarios. For instance, when Mark belittled her friend's career, she gently but firmly said, "I won't sit here and listen to you insult my friends." The moment Mark tried to escalate, she left the conversation, refusing to re-engage. The first few times, Mark tried stoking her guilt, calling her overly sensitive or rude. Despite feeling a pang of discomfort, Serena didn't back down. Phase 3, over the following weeks, Mark grew more aggressive or played victim more dramatically. He complained to mutual acquaintances that Serena was turning cold or no longer supportive. But ironically, that ended up exposing his manipulative patterns. Others began to see how Mark's negativity contrasted with Serena's calm clarity. Meanwhile, Serena recognized she felt lighter, no longer exhausted by endless attempts to reason with him. She had clarity: she wasn't mean, she was simply refusing to feed the toxic cycle. Eventually, Mark found less thrill in harassing her. He picked fights more sporadically, then directed his drama at other sources. Serena's stance didn't magically fix Mark's narcissism, but it fixed her sense of entanglement. She felt empowered, realized her voice mattered, and discovered that nice was replaced by respectful but firm, which served her better than blind niceness had ever done. If Serena's progress shows you the possibilities of dropping forced niceness for boundary-driven action, type "I'm worth defending." Because sometimes defending your own dignity is the most self-honoring choice. We've navigated a crucial shift: why stopping your niceness is key to ending the loop of narcissistic exploitation. This might feel counter to every kind, empathetic bone in your body. But the sad truth is that your relentless courtesy and patience can inadvertently empower a narcissist's manipulations, because they read unlimited empathy as unlimited pass to abuse. Remember the core lessons. Narcissists don't play fair, they interpret your kindness not as moral high ground but as a vulnerability to exploit. Instead of reciprocating, they escalate demands or intensify disrespect. Being too nice equals endless tolerance, smoothing over conflicts, apologizing when you've done no wrong, or ignoring repeated slights all signal to the narcissist that there's little or no consequence for their behavior. Boundaries over blind niceness, a short, calm statement of, no, stop, that's not okay, or, I'm not discussing this, backed by decisive action is more powerful than any sweet explanation. Narcissists get bored or frustrated when they can't push your emotional buttons. Choose safe, not just polite. Niceness can keep you in harm's way if a narcissist has violent or extreme reactions. Always assess your safety. If needed, quietly remove yourself from the environment or relationship altogether. Being nice is never worth putting yourself at genuine risk. Reclaim self-worth. Breaking from the compulsion to be nice all the time is also about self-respect. You're telling yourself that your well-being matters more than pacifying an abuser. If they call you mean for setting boundaries, that's part of their manipulation. You're not mean, you're being responsibly self-protective. As we close, remember that your innate kindness isn't the problem. Kindness is a beautiful quality, in the right context. The problem is when your kindness is hijacked by someone who sees it as a weapon to use against you. By choosing to stop being nice in that one-sided, self-sacrificial way, you're actually preserving your genuine empathy for those who deserve it and won't twist it to serve their ego. Lastly, if you're feeling a swirl of emotions, maybe guilt about not being nice, or worry about potential backlash from a narcissist, acknowledge those feelings. They're normal. Courage is feeling discomfort and doing the right thing anyway. If you're ready to step into that courage, type courage over comfort below. Because sometimes, the most compassionate act you can do for yourself is to politely but firmly say, enough, and free yourself from a cycle that kindness alone can't fix. Thank you so much for watching. It's time to liberate your kindness from being a tool in someone else's manipulative game. You can keep your heart open and empathetic, just not unconditionally to a narcissist. The healthiest version of kindness is the one that also respects your own boundaries and mental health. Let's choose that, together.